so much for joining us. We have Nadine, who has been kind enough to come and just have a chat with us about her experiences of setting up as a sole trader. There's many event professionals that I know that are thinking of going freelance, and Nadine also has some experience setting up a limited company. So there was just a few questions coming our way. We thought Nadine would just kind of come and share her personal experiences setting up both of those things. So I'm just going to let Lindsay in. Now, Nadine, you've been to these sessions, so it's not a surprise to you that we're going to start with a few...
I am human, I am.
You are human, and you are definitely one of us. I'm still going to start with the questions. So just a few quick fire questions for you. And we're going to start with, what was your favourite age?
Okay, my favourite age was 36. I think it was because I'd already had both my kids, so I was sort of done that bit. That chapter was done, and they were both healthy and happy, so that was good. I had started up my own business already, and it was going well, so I felt sort of confident and life was positive. And I just think it was the sort of time in my life I thought, you know, I'm in my 30s, I'm heading towards my 40s, and do you know what? I'm me, and I don't actually care anymore what people say or do or think. I'm just going to go for whatever feels right for me. So I say 36 is my ideal age.
That's awesome. I love that. And what's on your nightstand?
Nothing very exciting. I have an alarm clock, a Kindle with lots of books in it that I haven't even started reading yet, and some Aveeno moisturizer.
Nice. And a snapshot of an everyday small joy.
Probably when my children don't argue with each other. And that they get on with their schoolwork without me having to yelp. That's probably the most joyous day.
Brilliant. Amazing. You are human. We definitely know you're one of us. And we're so grateful for you coming to speak to us, Nadine. So I'm going to hand over to you just to share a bit about your experience of those things. And then if there are any questions, we can then go to questions. If there's anything that Nadine can't answer, or anybody in the group, because I know that there are some sole traders potentially here, then we will certainly go away and try and help you get those answers. So I'm going to hand over to Nadine.
Thank you. So yeah, first of all, this is literally just my personal insights and experiences of setting up as a sole trader and limited company. I'm by no means an expert, not qualified to be an accountant or a tax advisor. So this is just sort of my story, and I'm going to talk you through how I set everything up, and then I've got sort of the pros and cons and bits like that. And then obviously, like Jay said, we'll go for some questions which hopefully I can answer. Okay, so I basically had a full-time job in an events agency, and it was all going very well. And then the recession hit, and I got made redundant. So when I got made redundant, I was thinking, well, what am I going to do next? I sort of thought about becoming a freelancer, but I was a bit anxious about the whole idea of going it alone. But then I thought, well, what's the worst that could happen? If it doesn't go to plan, then I'll just find another full-time job. So I thought, right, I'm going to go for it. And I thought, right, I set up as a freelancer. So that was 11 years ago. And to be honest with you, I haven't looked back. There are times when you sort of wonder when your next job's going to come along, and when you're going to get your next client. But overall, it's been a really positive experience. So the reason why I sort of wanted to start as a freelancer was I wanted that work-life balance. I already had a 2-year-old daughter at the time, and just wanted to be able to manage my own time and fit everything in around childcare and just general lifestyle things. So I initially set up as a sole trader, and that was because it was the most straightforward option and the low-cost option. Literally just had me, my laptop, a mobile phone, and a desk in the spare room. And I just started ringing around all my contacts to sort of let them know I was setting up on my own, and did anybody have any work or projects or events that I could help them out on. And you know, it took a little while to get the sort of message out there, but after a while, I started sort of getting calls back saying, "Oh yeah, could you give me a hand on this and hand on that and that kind of thing?" And it started to get busier. So I took out my professional indemnity and public liability insurance, but I didn't really know what else I needed to do to set up as a freelancer, as a sole trader. So I went onto the HMRC website and saw at the time that they were doing free workshops. Now, I think they do them online now, but at the time they were in person. So I went up to town and joined some of their workshops, which were really informative. They sort of went through bookkeeping, invoicing, about claiming business expenses as a sole trader and paying the taxes. And basically just taught me that I needed to keep all the records of all my income, all my expenses and my receipts, and basically log it all into a spreadsheet, which I just used Excel for that. Just to log my incomings and outgoings. But obviously now you can sort of use, there's so many apps and programs that you can use to manage all your accounting, like Xero, and there's also, so there's so many. But I just kept it really simple and just did the Excel spreadsheet. So as a sole trader, you basically keep all of your profits after you've paid your tax, but you're personally responsible for any losses that the business makes. So as I was sort of getting my earnings coming in, you can keep it, you can use a personal bank account, you don't need a business bank account. I recommend sort of keeping a reserve of about 25% of your income and set that aside for your tax bill so that it doesn't catch you a fright when it comes through the following year. I think finding a good accountant is really important, and you have to make sure that they do all of the services that you need them to do, but for a reasonable price. So as a small, I'm a now limited company as well, I'd say that anything around up to £100 a month is acceptable, but anything over that a month, I would say you're paying too much. So I've been really working well as a sole trader. It's all been going really, really well. And I've started to reach out and make new contacts. And I got a meeting with a large blue chip corporate company. I went in for a chat with them. They said, we really want to work with you, but we just can't work with sole traders. You know, our sort of accounts team just won't let us do that anymore. We only work with limited companies. So I thought, well, okay, well, maybe I'll look into, I really want to work with these guys. It's like a really good project, really good money and everything. I'll just speak to my accountant and find out about becoming a limited company. It didn't seem like that big a deal, really. So he talked me through all the steps, and I thought, okay, I'll go for that. So what I needed to do first, because I'd always just traded under me, my name as a sole trader, with a personal bank account. I needed to think of a company name. And obviously I was toying with different names and everything like that. But I think a lot of people do get hung up on the company name. And I'd say it's not that important to actually have a company. And yes, you want something that reflects your business and the ethos and that kind of thing, but don't get hung up on it. Even if you just choose your initials and call that as your limited company, it doesn't really matter, because it's really about you, the work you do and the quality of work you do and your contacts. But anyway, when you are thinking about your company name, it's best to come up with some ideas and then check out on Companies House if that name's available. You might see different names of things that are similar, but if it's a different type of business, a different type of thing, you can use similar names, but you can't choose a company with exactly the same name as a limited company. And at the same time, it's always good to check out domain names, because you want to be able to have the website and the email addresses in your new business name as well. So you can check those out. There's one-to-one, there's 123 domain, and there's lots of different sites online that you can check whether your company name that you've chosen is available. So but once you've got both of those, that you've decided on a name and both are available, you then basically register with Companies House. Now, I got my accountant to help me set up with all of this, because I just wanted to make sure I didn't make any mistakes. But it was all pretty straightforward. I paid him a little bit more money now I was going to become a limited company, because there was a bit more admin on his part to basically set me up and then keep my sort of admin going for me, although I do a lot of it myself. My accountant advised it would actually be more tax efficient if I paid myself in dividends from profits that my limited company made, and then have a low PAYE salary that the business, so I had to have a payroll set up within my limited company to pay me as an employee of that business. But I kept it minimal, just enough to cover the national insurance contributions. I had to open a business bank because that's what you have to have, a business bank account with a limited company. And I ended up going with the HSBC because they had a year's free banking at that time. But there's so many different ones out there now that didn't exist then, so it's worth looking into those. So over the years, I've sort of retained most of my clients. I've sort of had a lot of repeat business, which has all been really good. None of them batted an eyelid that I changed from sole trader to limited company. Just didn't make any difference to them, but obviously meant I could get this new client because they would only work with limited companies. So over the years, I've sort of retained a lot of clients, and I've been lucky to sort of, even though some projects have gone to the wayside with mergers, company takeovers, and all of that kind of thing. But then COVID-19 hit a little while ago, and all of my event business completely dried up, disappeared overnight, and I basically thought, I've got no work in my limited company, what shall I do? I have furloughed myself, but obviously I only take a minimal PAYE salary, so I only been getting 80% of that, which is nothing really, but it just means that I don't have to, it covers my accountant costs, and it covers just the basic admin of my business. It covers my public liability insurance and all of those kind of things. But I'm not touching that business at all now, but I thought I've got to try and find a way to still make some income whilst there's no event. So I then decided to set up a separate business as a virtual assistant. Now, what the government said was you can be on furlough with a limited company and work as a freelancer, a sole trader, doing something else. So that's exactly what I've done. I've set up a VA business as a sole trader alongside still keeping my limited company business. And eventually one day, providing it all goes to plan, I'd like to incorporate my sole trader VA business into my limited company business and make them basically under the same limited umbrella. But that's a bit further down the line. I've got to sort of build that new VA business up a little bit more. So that's my sort of story, but now I just sort of want to go through my advice to you, and if you're thinking of setting up your own business and becoming a sole trader. Now, what you have to think of is your mindset. Once you've got your own business, you are the business owner and you have to drive things forward. You've got to be prepared to take the rough with the smooth, and you'll have days where you're really busy, and then you'll have days where you've got no work at all. And you've really just got to keep the spirits up and just keep it getting out there. Other things to consider as a freelancer is you get no holiday pay, you don't get any sick leave or pension contributions. Now, the day rate that you charge is normally higher than a PAYE salary, but don't forget, it's unlikely that you're going to be working 5 days a week for 52 weeks of the year as a freelancer or a sole trader, whether you're a limited company or as a sole trader. So before you take the leap into becoming self-employed, if you're not already, these are the questions I think you need to ask yourself. Are you self-motivated to work from home? Are you confident to keep networking and happy to be frequently looking for new work and new opportunities? Are you prepared to feel out of your comfort zone? And are you prepared to have a fluctuating income? Now, if you said yes to all of those, then freelancing could be for you. The pros of becoming self-employed: you're your own boss, you've got the flexibility around your personal life, and you could earn significantly more than being an employee. The cons, however, are that you've got the continual look for work, you have a regular payments and cash flow, so that's something really to bear in mind. If ideally you have maybe some savings behind you, or a partner that can basically support your paying the mortgage and things like that, just in case you have sort of a quiet spell with your work. And you have to do your own admin, or you can obviously pay for professional services like an accountant and you have to take out insurance. So there's, you know, there's a bit more admin involved rather than being just an employee. There's bookkeeping and things that you need to do. Even if you get your accountant to do most of it for you, you still need to keep your own record. So some pitfalls and things to look out for as a freelancer. So you've got the potential of chasing invoices and payment. Not everybody pays on time, and you have to sometimes be chasing for your money to come in. So you have to also then manage your cash flow as well. You've also got potential clients who want to haggle rates. So you need to be confident and know your worth, and not to be tempted to work for rock bottom prices just because are you really desperate to get the work. You've got to know that you're a professional and there's only a minimum amount of money that you'll work for. You don't want to sort of, you know, work for nothing. Establish strict working hours with your client, and don't let them take advantage. You don't want emails coming through at 11 o'clock at night and then sort of have to respond to them and things like that. So you set yourself strict hours of when you will respond to emails and messages. And also don't let clients try and take, I guess, advantage with sort of trying to give you extra work for free and not being paid for it, because all work is chargeable unless it's been pre-agreed already, because clients do try and get as much as they can out of you for the money, and you know, sometimes they try and push it a little bit too far. So hopefully these points don't sound too daunting, and if it's something you really, really want to do and you've got the drive to do it, then it's completely achievable. And there's so many people who, you know, become freelance, and it's a really good free, you know, lifestyle choice. So just in summary, I'm just going to go through quickly. Sole trader. If you set up as a sole trader, it's more straightforward. You can use a personal bank account. You and your business are treated as a single entity, so you are your business, and you're personally liable should anything go wrong, whereas a limited company, it's a completely separate entity to you. As a sole trader, you can start trading straight away. There's no real setup costs. You just need to register and pay your taxes through the HMRC, and you need to file an annual self-assessment and pay your tax, and it's a lot less admin involved. A limited company, however, the costs are slightly higher than being self-employed, but not by too much. You'll need to register your company name with Companies House, which is pretty straightforward. Look through their website to see if your company name that you're choosing is available and register. And also, as I said earlier, check if the domain name is available so you can set up a business email and website too. Once you've registered with Companies House, you'll be sent a certificate of incorporation, and this confirms the legality of your business. And then you also need to register for corporation tax through the HMRC. You do need a business bank account, and as a limited company, I would say you definitely need to have an accountant, which is probably your main overhead. Because they best advise how to take dividend payments, how to submit your annual returns, and they can do it on your behalf. And also if you want to become VAT registered, but that's a different subject, I won't go into that now. And whichever way you go, I recommend that you take out professional indemnity insurance and public liability insurance if you're going to be in public spaces, or even working from somebody else's office. So I hope I haven't given you information overload, and yeah, then let me know some questions and I'll try and answer.
Amazing. Nadine, that was incredible, comprehensive, but not in any way overwhelming. So thank you so, so much for that. Now we have time for some questions. So whilst you guys are thinking on some questions, we had a few come in the group chat box. So where did the VA business idea come from?
I think it's because obviously I've got event management background, and I sort of used to multitasking, and I sort of just was looking at different things that you could do where you could work from home, be flexible, and have that skill set of sort of project management, event management, and then the sort of admin skills. And I just sort of started to research things on the internet really. It just came up as something, and I thought, actually, I can do that. Why not? So I literally only did this about a month and a half ago, set up as a VA and created a website, and yeah, just started joining all the sort of social media groups on Facebook and LinkedIn and everything, and just trying to network, really. Lots of networking groups as well. But yeah, it was just really something I could use my existing skills for.
Brilliant. And I love that, like identifying what your transferable skills were and then seeing what the options were. Was there a certain process that you went through, Nadine, with that? Did you kind of like list everything out, or how did you go through that?
Yeah, so I found a couple of Facebook groups which specialised in setting up as a virtual assistant, and sort of looked at people's comments, and they have some sort of free sort of courses, if you like, but they're sort of free, where there's loads of material on their websites where you can just read, you know, whatever. And they had a list of 75 jobs you could do as a virtual assistant. So I printed that off and literally ticked it. Thought, yeah, I can do that. No, I can't do that, or could do that, but don't want to do that, and that kind of thing. And I thought, yeah, I can do this. I probably have to learn some new skills along the way, because, you know, I guess, don't have that much experience in a lot of the softwares that people use and things like that. But I've sort of enjoyed playing around with Canva and lots of other new things that I never would have probably done before. And then the other week I got a job doing some proofreading. It was my first VA project. I never really done proofreading before, but I thought, well, with events, I have to check signage, I have to check all of that kind of thing. I can do that. So I put myself forward for it, and yeah, the woman basically selected me. We had a Zoom call, and she said, yeah, I want you to do this proofreading project. It was basically proofreading a copywriter's website. And I was going through not so much for the copy itself, but just the layout, the feel of it, and just the flow of everything. And obviously if there were typos and things like that in it as well.
Yeah, and I think you know, events professionals are so in tune with experience, customer experience. Now, whether that's a, you know, a live event experience or the experience that you have on a website or a form, I think that you are just so in tune with that. It really, really makes sense that would fit within your kind of skill set,
Yeah.
just in a very different way. Incredible. Awesome. Okay. Some really great questions here. Okay, so how do you stay motivated in between jobs? What sorts of things do you tend to end up doing in between jobs?
I guess mostly looking for other jobs, really, to be honest with you, trying to connect with people, set up coffees with people, even if it doesn't necessarily result in immediate work. I think it's really just about creating your network and keeping in touch with people who you maybe haven't worked with for ages. So you might do a project for somebody but not work with them for years. It's reconnecting with those people and keeping those relationships going. Yeah, I think it's really more about the connections than anything, which is why I'm saying, when you choose a company name, just don't get hung up on it. I see so many, especially on VA websites, like on these groups. Oh, I've been waiting for a year, I can't quite decide on my company name. It's like, a year to sort of think about a company name? It's just like, that's so not me. I'm just like, just get on with it. And I actually replied to a lady the other day. I said, forget the name, just trade as you, it doesn't matter, just get on with it. And then she replied back saying, right, I'm starting on Monday. I said, great. So I think also, I think it's having a positive mindset when you're saying about, you know, what keeps you upbeat and motivated. I'm a very positive person. I always try and think the glass is half full rather than empty, and I think you have to, because I think if you think positively, positive things will happen. I think as soon as you start feeling down and negative about things, then it's never gonna work. I just always think that even if you're having a day when it's like, oh, disappointment, you get a rejection or somebody doesn't respond to you, just think, oh well, onwards and upwards, they're lost, and just move on to the next.
Yeah, I really like that, and especially, you know, I think there was a quote that I read recently. It was, you know, disappointment you can either use disappointment to drive you or destroy you, but that's a choice. There's a choice in that. Yeah. So
I definitely think that with this whole coronavirus, I mean, I had such a great year ahead in my events calendar. I'd worked really hard last year, the end of last year, networking, meeting with people. I'd really gone to fill that calendar this year, and to have it pulled from underneath me within 3 days. Obviously, at first I was like completely gutted. I mean, I must say, you know, I can't sort of go, woohoo, it was great. You know, I was really devastated and in shock probably for a good number of weeks. But I thought, I can't change the situation. I can't bring events back. So I have to think, well, what else can I do, and try and find a positive in this, and then, you know, try and make something else happen, just, you know, until events come back, which I still intend to hopefully work in events, continue working in events when they do come back, because I've been doing it for like over 20 years. So all I know, really.
That's really inspiring. Thank you so much for that, Nadine. Do you find clients want some previous PA or EA experience?
So far with that, yes, they do, but I think it's the way you word things that, you know, at the end of the day, with 25, I think it is, years experience in events, I've got enough experience in life, work, business and everything. I think, well, actually, okay, maybe I don't know that particular piece of software, so I'll just quickly learn how to use it. I don't see that that should hinder me. Yeah, there'll be some people who say, oh, you have to have X amount of years as a virtual assistant and whatever. But I just think, well, I'll apply for it, and if I fit the role, they'll choose me for me, and the experience I've got doesn't necessarily need to be in that specific job or that specific role.
Yeah, great answer there. How long after setting up do you think it changed from mainly new business to having the same clients coming back? So how long did it take you to get those repeats?
Pretty much straight away, to be honest. In the you're talking about the event side, I'm guessing, because this is where I've obviously got my most experience. So yeah, with the event side of things, I sort of got some new inquiries, and then once I did the event for them, to be honest with you, the jobs had gone well, so they sort of did, when they did their event the following year, they sort of asked me to come back and run it again for them. So I've always had, I don't think there's any client where I've only worked with them once. No, every client I've had, I've worked with them at least twice, and sometimes it didn't happen a third time or fourth time because their business, basically, they sold the event, decided not to do the event again, or it wasn't profitable. The only time there was one client who I've worked with him for 4 years, and he was just a nightmare, to be honest with you. And I just thought the opposite way around. I thought, actually, you want me to work on your event again, but I actually don't want to work with you. You're a headache. You sort of make my life way, way too stressful. You don't listen to anything I'm advising you, and you're just going to go and do everything that I'm telling you not to do. So I just said to him, thanks ever so much, but I can't work on your event anymore. And we went our separate ways. And he still came back the following year after that and said, oh, you know, can you work again on my event? Because he basically went through, I was doing operational management. He went through about 3 ops people in 1 year because nobody could bear his personality. So that's the only time I've actually pushed work away. But other than that, I've always had repeat work. I've been lucky that way.
Awesome. Do you think daily freelancer rates have changed with COVID and people not having as large budgets?
At the minute, with the event side of stuff, obviously there's not really much work to be going for, but yes, I'd say that it's probably is going to impact on the daily rate. I think because the supply and the demand, I think there's going to be a lot of people looking for work, and I think that there's not going to be as many jobs as there are people looking for them, and so I think it will be hard to maybe retain the same day rate, especially at the top end of the rates which I was charging. But I still think I wouldn't take a job that was too low, just because I just think, you know, if someone's buying my experience, my expertise, and, you know, I think that there has to be a limit. Otherwise, the whole industry will just start going down and down, and everyone will be working for peanuts, basically.
Yeah. We've got some really, really great questions coming in. We've got some fabulous ones. I know you set up your business for work-life balance, but financially are in a worse, better, or same position as you were when you were working full-time permanent roles.
So weirdly, in my first year of trading as a sole trader in the events business, I actually earned more than I did as a full-time employee. But as a full-time employee, I was only working 4 days a week because I was trying to get some work-life balance. So I would say every year I've earned pretty much more than I would have as a full-time employee, apart from the year I was on maternity leave. So I'd say I have earned more every year as a freelancer. Not, you know, not winning the lottery kind of money, but every year I've sort of, yeah. But I think also the work-life balance outweighs some of that, and some of the costs I would have incurred with the childcare and the extra things like that as well. I have to take that into account of what extra costs I would incur if I had to do a full-time job and didn't have that flexibility as well.
We've got some other answers there. Where do you stand on unpaid work to help people out? And would you do this to get a foot in the door with hope of paid work down the line? Also, have you ever had clients wanting to use your personal connections or ask you to bring in clients? And would this be an additional fee for you?
So I'm all about helping people out. I'm happy to give advice and that kind of thing, but working for free, no, I wouldn't actually work for free. I think I'm more than happy, as I said, to have a chat with someone, give my top tips, recommend connections to people, and you know, guide people as sort of like more like a friend, if you get what I mean, like a work colleague friend, as opposed to. But personally, if it was something more than helping out, then I would expect to be paid for it. What was the other part of the question? Yes, yeah, so I have had people wanting to use my personal connections to bring in clients. I've had that, but I've worked more also with suppliers, so I often like recommend my suppliers I work with in events, and then get them work, and then they get me work later on. So it's sort of like the way it's worked with me is if I've recommended someone or referred someone, it's sort of that agreement that if they can help me out later, that they will too. So I don't get hung up on the sharing the contacts bit so much, because I just think actually if that helps somebody else get work and they know that it's my referral, then hopefully when something comes their way that I could do, they would then put the work my way. So yeah, I'm not so precious about contacts and clients and things like that. So that's just a personal thing.
Nadine, you mentioned a couple like insurance. It was kind of public liability insurance, and then I think it was indemnity insurance.
So professional indemnity insurance is a must. That basically protects you should you make any mistakes or errors, so that you're protected basically. I mean, most of the work that I've done in events, to be honest with you, I'm not the end client, if you like. I'm not the one that's going to be the last in line to be sued should something happen. But if anything did happen on an event, they would expect all businesses all people to be insured sufficiently to cover those costs. So I'd say definitely 100% need professional indemnity. Public liability, I don't have as a virtual assistant because I'm working from home. I'm not going into anybody's offices or anything like that. So that basically protects you or your business for accidents and things like that. So if I was working in somebody's offices or I was working on site somewhere, you would need to have the public liability, even if it was something like I left my handbag on the floor in an office and someone tripped over it. Well, it's a bit of an extreme example, but that technically still would be protected under the public liability insurance. Obviously for events, you need it. And you need quite a lot of cover, especially sort of shows I do, because I do a lot of public festivals, consumer shows and festivals. So for that, the companies that I work for expect you to have at least 5 million cover on that one.
Right. And you've spoken about sole trader versus limited company. What do you think is the benefit of PAYE versus sole trader?
So the PAYE, obviously you get sick pay, you get holiday pay, and you get pension contributions. They're all things that if you're a sole trader, you don't get any of those. The only plus side of the sole trader is that you could potentially earn more money, but you obviously have to take into account that you don't get paid if you're not working, you don't get paid if you're poorly, and you don't get paid if you want to go on holiday. So I think it all depends, because I know that Christine wanted this question, she answered the question last week. It all depends really if what you're charging out as your sole trader rate is over and above what you get in your PAYE salary offer, and also obviously the work-life balance element, because that's obviously to me has a significant value. But I think it's really just down to what your day rate is and how much work you can get versus being in a PAYE role where you'll have all those other sort of benefits included. So I think it's just weighing up really how much more you think you could earn, you know. But it's not immediate when you're so set up, unless you know you're going to have clients handed to you straight away. It isn't immediate as a sole trader. You have to be prepared that there will be a slow start potentially, that you might get 1 or 2 projects in and then it's quiet and there's not much going on, which is why I was saying you really ideally need to have some savings behind you, or a partner or something like that, where if you're not earning as much in that year, you're not going to struggle to pay your bills and your mortgage. But for me, it was more of a lifestyle thing, and just being my own boss, I was just fed up of getting called into meetings for the sake of meetings. I know I got made redundant in the end, but it was just, you know, I just thought, I don't need all these politics. I just want to do my job. I just want to, you know, get on with it. And also want the potential of earning more money than being on a payroll, really.
If I may say something, sorry, Nadine, but on the sole trader, I mean, I had to go exactly like Nadine again, and I went from perm to sole trader to limited. But I will say, just have a little talk to your client or potential, you know, where you work, because I had to go limited company because none of the agency that I was working here, being big agency like George B. Johnson or Jack Morton, they do not want sole traders anymore. They only wanted limited company. So it's good to have a look around and ask what their policy is, because, well, we had to go limited company because then we wouldn't get jobs. Yeah. And I know they wouldn't take sole traders now. They only go, I mean, things might change with the RI35, but, you know, so it's important to just maybe have a little, you know, survey or wow, think about what they want to do. Because it is not, it's just pain when you just need to be limited company.
Yeah.
As Nadine said.
So I've been speaking to a company and they gave the option of any of the 3. So they said, would you like PAYE or freelance, sole trader, or limited company? And they work through an agency. And he said, if you've never done it before, probably best to start with PAYE and then decide later on if you wanted to switch to the others. But I don't think the rate would have changed. So it's starting to feel like if I went with sole trader, I can change later on, then you'd probably end up taking home more, right?
I just think if they're not offering you a different rate, the PAYE versus the others, I would probably stick with PAYE.
Oh, okay.
Me too, because then you get the benefits.
Yeah, I would definitely, if in that option and there was no difference in what you were going to get paid, I would go PAYE and take the holiday pay and the sick cover and all of the rest of it that comes with that type of job. It's really only worth, I mean, if you're going to go self-employed, whether limited or as a sole trader, you have to be getting more for your day rate to cover those things, and your administration, your accountancy, your insurance, all of the outgoings that you have that you just wouldn't have as an employee.
Right. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
There was the mention of R1 RI35.
IR35.
IR35.
Yeah, sorry, I mentioned that.
Oh, thank you.
It was the horrible thing of 2020, and then the pandemic arrived, so that was put under the carpet. But it was still a big problem for us limited and sole traders. Over to you, Nadine.
Thanks. Well, basically, I'm not the expert in IR35, but the premise of it is that if you're seen as that you could be a full-time employee, the company that hires you basically could be fined, and so could you, because you're, correct me if I'm wrong here, Veronique, if you if you're working for one company pretty much the whole time, you could then be seen as an employee. If you're using their domain names or their laptops or their emails and things like that, you can basically be fined by the Inland Revenue for basically saying you're self-employed when really you should be actually employed as an employee.
Yeah, some company are using the freelancer because they obviously don't have to pay all the pensions and the medical and everything, but they're using that freelancer and they call them permlancer or whatever. So these people just end up working for the same agency for the whole year. So obviously HMRC say, well, if you do that, you should be an employee and then, you know, pay. So that was the whole thing. But it just got a bit complicated, which I don't even get it. It's very complicated. And they even had come to a decision, really. It was going to be put in place April and things were going to change. And that's why we had to do lots of questionnaires, and agency I work for started changing to daily rate to package because they were trying to go around the thing for us and everything. So it hasn't been put in place yet. I think they've delayed it to 2021. But for the understanding, if you do work for several agencies, either as a limited or a sole trader, I mean, well, it's more limited, isn't it? Then you are outside of it and it wouldn't change much. But it's still something to look for. It's coming. I think when things have gone back, it is coming, and it will affect quite a lot of people.
Yeah, they basically postponed it to next April because of COVID. So they said it is 100% coming into play in the new tax year from next April 2021. And it basically means that that a lot of companies might not want to hire you as a freelancer, and they'd rather have you on your payroll, but then obviously you're potentially going to have to take quite a cut in salary because a payroll pay rate is a lot lower than what you could charge out as a freelancer. So for example, it's mostly actually going to affect my husband because he's in IT and he works for one client at a time, and therefore, although he says he's outside, technically he's not. So if he has to go on a PAYE payroll, he will lose probably about a third of his money, a third of his daily rate, be paid less by doing that. So with me, I am outside. In the past, I've always been outside because I tend to have 2 or 3 events going at any one time for different clients. So I don't ever work on one thing at a time. I tend to have multiple projects going on at one time. So for me, that I don't fall into that category because I'm never working just for one company for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, and for me, who not like that, I end up working on one project at a time, probably for 3-4 months, mainly long-term contract. That was the worry. But as long as I've got 2 or 3 during 1 year, I should be fine. But it's one thing, again, it's to add to the list to consider because it will come, it will happen. And so it's just another thing to add. But all in all, it's quite fun to be freelancer.
No, that's it's really good to get.
There's a lot of things to do, but that's what I was saying to Christine. I mean, I've been lucky that I've been really busy, but we were saying that with Nadine. Sometimes it's January and you're like, oh my God, I have no work. That's it. I have no work. I'm not going to work at all. And it's like really worrying because you're thinking, but then, you get a phone call and a lot of repeat projects. And then your whole year, like 2020 whole year was busy. But then, so it's one of those things. As long as you can mentally be strong enough to try and think that it's going to come, something's going to come, because you're saying, oh, nothing's going to happen, and then you get 4 or 5 phone calls at the same times and you're busy. But it's strongly probably mentally you need to be able to just cope with that there will be ups and downs.
I always have my December panic where I think I've got nothing in the diary for next year, what am I going to do? But like you said, it does come in, and there'll be the repeat ones that come in, and then hopefully a few new extra things that come along the way as well. So yeah, you've got to definitely think positive, and if work doesn't come in, you have to then be prepared to think, right, well, I'll just go out and I'll go and start meeting new people and chatting to people and try and generate that work to come in as well. So, but it is, you're always looking for ways to fill your work diary, definitely.
Brilliant.
Can I just have a little jump in? So I've spoken to Nadine. I pretty much know most of the people on the call actually, so hey. I've already spoken to Nadine actually outside of this, and your advice is amazing. I've just set up as a sole trader. I've always been on the payroll, and I thought I've been wanting to be a freelancer for a little while, and obviously I thought, now what better time than ever? So I've set up as a sole trader. But for me, I'm still kind of exploring what this world means and whether it's a future that I actually want. So I think a sole trader, for me, having explored all the options, there's no setup fees. I don't have to have an accountant. I've not got any kind of monthly costs. I don't have to dissolve a business if I decide it's not for me, if a permanent job does come up. So I think one of the things that Nadine said to me on our call the other week was, if you obviously get a permanent role come in, then you can take that and just basically sideline the freelance stuff. Whereas if you've got a business, you've still got to run that and you've still got those costs and everything. And it's a lot harder to kind of back out of it. So you can obviously always upgrade if you like to a limited company, but it's quite difficult to obviously downgrade, as it were, back to sole trader. So that's kind of just something that really stuck with me.
Because the other thing for me, I feel like I would probably dip my foot in. I think I might be like contract to contract, like rather than completely freelance, which I think is similar to what you were saying, Amy, because I think I feel like I still kind of need the security of working for like a company, even if it's only on a contract basis, and then go into another one. And I know that's another way to do it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm a very positive person and I do love all the networking, but this scares the shit out of me.
Excellent.
The financial
I'm a 5.
instability, I'm like,
5.
Yeah. I think if you're testing the water to see if it's for you or just to see how it goes, definitely start with the sole trader side of things, because you've got to feel for, are you going to be able to make a go of this? Is this going to work? And is work going to come in? The limited company bit is really more of a formality, and to create a business that, if like Veronique was saying, and I've had experience too, that some companies only want to work with limited companies, and that's because of tax implications. That's pretty much it. They don't want to be, they know with a limited company, don't have to, there's going to be no comeback on them. Because as a sole trader, you're responsible for your taxes, but they don't actually know that you're going to pay them. They don't know whether something's going to come back and bite them later. Whereas as a limited company, you're a business, and therefore you're registered. Your company's house. There's a tracking, I guess, as to, you have to file the paperwork, otherwise you get fined. You have to have all this formality. So it's really the reason why companies want to work with limited companies is purely, I think, from a tax implications point of view, that you're registered and that you're a business. But I don't think, I mean, you'll find that smaller agencies and smaller companies will work with sole traders. I think it's really just the bigger, more corporate clients that will be more wary about sort of, or not want to work with anybody other than limited companies. But everything's changing so quickly with everything, and with the IR35 coming in, don't know what the implications are going to be of that either. So all a bit unknown.
And also, I would say the last agency I worked for, although they wanted limited company, there were quite a few people within, the team that we were quite big. It was quite a big project, but there were a few freelancers who went limited company. So those people ended up being on PAYE just for the contract. So, there is way to work around. So definitely don't go limited until you have you've done a few years and you've got your nice customer clients and you're quite set. Otherwise, I would have never done it because, it's a big thing. But there are agencies who do put you on a PAYE for 3 months, for example, or 2 months and everything. So there's way around, because they can't just choose limited company. They want the freelancers as well. Oh, well, they did anyway. So yeah. So it's not just one or the other. There's always some room to play. And as you said, you can actually go find a permanent job then, or just decide to just go PAYE and see.
Yeah, because all you have to do as a sole trader, and then if you decided to go for a full-time job, you just need to fill in a self-assessment at the end of the year and declare whatever earnings you earn as a sole trader in addition to your PAYE salary. So you'll have to do a self-assessment anyway once you've become self-employed and registered with the HMRC anyway. So it's pretty straightforward, and you can chop and change a lot easier. You could go and do a full-time contract and then a year later think, oh, actually, I'm going to go back to doing a bit of freelancing, or someone might approach you to say, could you do this? Or maybe you'll do both alongside each other. Maybe you'll have a PAYE job and somebody will say, oh, could you do this other work for me as a sole trader? And you could do it at the weekends and the evenings, and you can still do both at the same time. I just think with a limited company, I mean, this is what I'm facing now, is that if I don't generate much income in the next year or two for my business, will I have to close it down? And then there's costs involved in shutting down a limited business. Don't want to have to do that. I'm just hoping, you know, obviously you can freeze it, but then I would have to then pay for my accountant out of my personal pocket rather than the business and that kind of thing. So it just starts getting a bit more complicated as well.
Amazing. And just a final question, and then if there are other questions that we haven't answered, we'll make sure that you get the links to Nadine's LinkedIn, and you can link up with her if you are not already. But just this final question from Kim: what is the reasoning from the agencies to only work with limited and not sole trader?
It's really what I was saying just now. It's the tax implications. So it's basically that a big company like that really only wants to work with companies. And like Veronique said, if they want to have a sole trader, they will normally take them onto their payroll just to make sure that their taxes are being paid. It's really just so that nothing comes back to bite them from a sort of inland revenue point of view, and that actually the people that they're working with are responsible for paying their own taxes and are not going to dodge paying anything.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Nadine, for all of that. I know that it has been incredibly useful. If anyone wants to link up with Nadine, we'll make sure you get those links in your emails. Next week, we're going to be joined by Shalina. She has 30 years of project management experience. Not only that, she was actually the ex-chief examiner of the APM qualification. So she has a lot of experience in terms of the qualifications, and she also has some experience in PMI, which is the American version. So look forward to potentially seeing you all next week.
Right.
Brilliant, fantastic session. Thanks, Nadine.